we started off talking about Socrates and some of the other foundational figures. And I wanted to bring us back to another one, which is Aristotle. And I have to have your thoughts on this. In 2018, somebody called Matthew Sears, who is apparently an associate professor of classics and ancient history at the University of New Brunswick, I say apparently because what he's about to say would suggest that he couldn't possibly be a professor or a professor of classics. But anyway, he wrote a piece in the Washington Post in 2018 titled Aristotle, Father of Scientific Racism. You've got to keep a straight face because there's a lot worse to come. He says,
I missed this at the time somehow.
Yeah, the author also described Aristotle as the granddaddy of all racial theorists. And among the charges that this Professor Matthew Sears, made was that one of the charges against Aristotle is that Charles Murray, the author of The Bell Curve, once named him as his favorite philosopher.
That's a charge against a man who lived before Jesus Christ?
2,500 years ago. Yeah.
Guilt by association really taken to its furthest extent.
That's the furthest I've ever known guilt by association. Yeah. It's way beyond sins of the father.
Wow, anachronistic guilt by association is pretty... how do you defend yourself against that?
Yeah, you've got to make sure that you don't do anything that somebody...
2,500 years later could like, who is on the wrong side of history. I mean, yeah, okay.
It certainly puts pressure on us all as writers. Matthew Sears went on in the Washington Post to say, in the first book of his Politics, written in the 300s BC, Aristotle uses these taxonomies to justify the exclusion of certain people from civic life. Aristotle, therefore, envisioned a hierarchical society where everyone had their proper place, from fully enfranchised citizens all the way down to slaves.
That seems to be a way of organizing society that was replicated in India, in China, all over Africa. I mean, it doesn't seem to be unique to ancient Athens. It's a weird way of, but you know, there's this way of. I'm quite fascinated with it's a form of kind of narcissism and white supremacy to say that all evils only come from this tradition that we call white now, that we say, you know, belongs to us. And so it excuses or it makes unimportant or insignificant the hierarchical thinking and oppressive ways of living that other cultures also, I mean, there's, to this day, there's slavery right now.
Yeah.
But we almost are incapable of speaking about it because it's only a kind of slavery that came through the collision of Europe and Africa that has any moral valence. And I get this sense from what he's trying to say is that it doesn't matter that other peoples did these same things. You know, this is a kind of sin of, you know, of retroactive whiteness that is the only relevant, you know. It's astonishing because, again, it's the same way of thinking that the actual racists apply. No one else has agency.
The idea that in a book written in the 300s BC, Aristotle believed in the exclusion of certain people from civic life. There seems to be what in the era of the internet and social media we would call a severe context collapse.
I mean... Yes.
in 2003, in 300 BC, everybody was excluding some people from civic life. There wasn't much by way of civic life as we would now.
Right. It was the breakthrough in Athens was that anybody was participating in any kind of democratic way of civic life. I mean, that was the breakthrough. Was that some people did this,
right.
But the idea that most people did that is extraordinarily recent.